start with the next topic. Ethics in private sector. Okay, ethics in private sector, or it is also known as corporate governance. So, the first thing to understand here is the context. Why do we need a separate ethical framework for private sector? Okay. Now, in recent times, the role of private sector has increased considerably in our development and governance process, and especially after the economic reforms. So, in the 12th plan period from 2012 to 17, around 48% of the investment came from the private sector. Okay. So, with the advent of neo-right philosophy, neoliberal philosophy in the late 1980s, early 1990s, the role of private sector has increased. Okay, everywhere, not just in India, across the world. And with increasing importance in their role and functions, incidents of corporate wrongdoings, incidents of corporate misdemeanors have also increased. There have been so many scams, scandals, etc. Okay. So, let us discuss some of those examples. A rise of corporate malfeasance. Yes?
So, just like Google has evidence.
Google has, yes.
Can be also considered in this?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It's an example of corporate wrongdoing, corporate malfeasance. These are known as corporate malfeasance. Okay, so let us discuss examples of corporate wrongdoings, examples of corporate malfeasance. Now, different corporate wrongdoings, they can be categorized into different categories. Okay, first is accounting scandals. Accounting scandals. Okay, so we have had so many accounting scandals. Accounting scandals mean manipulation of your accounts, books of accounts. There are different kinds of accounts which are maintained by a private sector entity. So they have balance sheet, they have profit and loss statement, they have cash flow statement. Okay, so in accounting scandals, one or more of these accounting statements is manipulated. Okay. The example क्या है accounting scandals के? Satyam scandal. Okay. Enron scandal. Sahara is not an accounting scandal. Yeah, but that is not the primary wrongdoing that they have done. It's a Ponzi scheme. Chit funds is different. Accounting scandal में सत्यम हो गया, then Enron, ठीक है, Enron scandal in US, WorldCom scandal again in US, AIG scandal, American Insurance Group. All these are examples of accounting scandals. Satyam, Enron, WorldCom, AIG, etc. All these companies, they manipulated their books of accounts. They underestimated their expenses or overinflated their revenue, or they underestimated their liabilities, overestimated their assets. Okay. So books of accounts अलग-अलग तरीके के होते हैं. Balance sheet focuses on assets and liabilities. P&L statement, profit and loss statement focuses on revenue and expenditure. Next, indulging in high risk activities. Indulging in high risk activities to earn supernormal profit. To to earn supernormal profit. Okay, इसका क्या एग्जाम्पल हो जाएगा? Basically this means risking investors' money, है ना, indulging in high risk activities to earn supernormal profits, risking investors' money. Example would be 2008 financial crisis. What happened in 2008 financial crisis? What was the root cause? Subprime loans. Yes. What is subprime loans? So basically, these investment banks such as Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, etc., they indulged in subprime lending. Subprime borrowers are those borrowers who are not credit worthy, है ना? But they pay a higher rate of return. They pay a higher rate of interest. That's why these investment banks, they, in order to earn supernormal profits, in order to earn extraordinary profits, they indulge in subprime lending. And ultimately, these subprime borrowers were not able to repay the loan back. Okay, which ultimately led to the financial crisis. Okay.
So here also the goods this kind of crisis. These are
Yeah, but they were not subprime customers. They haven't repaid the loan. That is a different issue. But they were credit worthy. When the loan was given to them, most of them were credit worthy. They haven't been able to repay the loan because of various other factors. Okay? There are various factors. NPA crisis is a different crisis. It's not a subprime crisis. Subprime crisis takes place when you deliberately gives loan to a subprime borrower.
the end will be like that.
End might be like that. End might be that borrowers are not able to repay the money back. But deliberately, it wasn't like the banks did not give loan to subprime borrowers. So subprime lending is a different phenomenon. In 2008 financial crisis, it was done deliberately in order to earn supernormal profits. Here, banks haven't lent to particular individuals or companies to earn supernormal profits.
At the end of the day, the rules will not be same as you know prominent cases compared to India. They have deliberately given the loans, and the result was global crisis. So India is facing the same. Whatever the main sense is different. The banks given credit to other people, but the team, if it's not repaid, then the India will be on the
Yeah, so that's why we are facing a financial crisis. Banking sector is facing a crisis in India.
It will affect the overall GDP.
Yes, it is. It is. In the past 2-3 years, the banking crisis, the NPA crisis, it has affected our entire macroeconomy. All the macroeconomic indicators have been affected. Yeah. Okay. Next, non-disclosure of information. Non-disclosure of information. So again, it is another form of corporate wrongdoing, that a company, a private sector entity does not disclose all information to all the stakeholders. For example, recently DLF was fined. DLF, you know, real estate company. It was fined recently by SEBI because in its prospectus, IPO prospectus होता है, initial public offering होता है, when companies go public, when they are about to sell their shares and stocks, ठीक है, IPO निकलता है, और IPO का एक prospectus निकलता है where the company is basically supposed to give all information regarding its transactions, regarding its relationship with subsidiary companies, etc. Okay, so DLF, it was found that DLF in its basically IPO prospectus, it had not disclosed certain information related to transactions with one of its subsidiary companies to the investors. Okay, so SEBI had fined DLF, okay, for non-disclosure of information. Okay, next, indulging in anti-competitive practices. indulging in anti-competitive practices such as formation of cartels. You understand anti-competitive practices? What are anti-competitive practices?
The cartelization group of traders restricting the supply of so that the demand grows and the price increases.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, any practice that is aimed at curbing competition, negatively affecting your competitors. है ना? So cartelization, है ना? So a group of companies forming a cartel and they manipulating their supplies so as to manipulate the prices. Okay. For example, a good example of a cartel is OPEC, OPEC, oil and petroleum exporting countries. Okay. Even
they are anti-competitive. That's why the anti-competitive concept came out.
yes, it curbs competition by like internet service providers. Yeah, that is one of the reasons. Business neutrality can be an example. Internet service providers basically violating the principles of net neutrality. Okay. Similarly, recently, which is the institution we have for regulatory bodies? CCI, Competition Commission of India. So recently, CCI had penalized the public sector insurance companies. We have, I think, 4 or 5 public sector insurance companies. General Insurance Company, Oriental Insurance Company, New India Assurance Company, इस तरीके के 4 या 5. So again, it was found that they had formed a cartel. ठीक है, and they were charging insurance premium. Basically, all of them were increasing and reducing insurance premium in the same manner. They were manipulating prices. Okay, so they were penalized by CCI. Okay. Even nowadays, Uber and Ola, they are formed a cartel. You will find that they, in the name of surge pricing, they increase the prices together, and then consumers are left with no other option because there are only 2 service providers. Okay. So all these are examples of anti-competitive practices. It's a form of corporate malfeasance, corporate wrongdoing. Okay, next is Ponzi schemes. What is a Ponzi scheme? For example, Sharda chit fund scam is a Ponzi scheme. What is a Ponzi scheme? How do you define a Ponzi scheme?
Collecting money was collected. Okay, and after a period of time, returns will be promised.
Okay.
And that particular things were
That is a general fraudulent scheme. That is any fraudulent scheme. In Ponzi scheme, what happens is that early investors, they are provided returns through investment from later investors instead of investing their money in a legitimate business activity. For example, suppose there is a scheme, okay, and there are 5 investors in that scheme. 5 people have invested. Initially A invested, B invested, then C, then D, then E. Now A and B have invested. They would be requiring returns on the investment. Say on a monthly basis, they would be expecting some return. So how would the scheme operator give return to them? By taking money from C or D or E. Okay, he will take money from C or D and then a part of it will be given to A and B as return. Okay, similarly C and D को कहाँ से return मिलेगा? From F and G. Okay, instead of investing their money in some legitimate business activity, The objective is कि जो old investors हैं उनको किसी तरह return दिया जाए. How? By attracting new investors. And ultimately what will happen?
New customers are not defined, then the particular change breaks.
Yeah, that breaks. Plus, after some point in time, they will stop paying return to the old investors. These Ponzi schemes, they will stop paying return to the old investors. They will collect all the money from the new investors and run away. Okay, this is what happens in a Ponzi scheme. For example, Sharda scheme. So for some time, they will be repaying old investors. Okay, just to give the impression that it's a genuine scheme. Okay, after they have collected a certain amount, they would stop repaying them. Okay. So Ponzi scheme is another example of corporate wrongdoing. Okay. See, you should be very clear about the definition of these things. Because in my interview, like they had asked, what is a Ponzi scheme? So if you don't give the precise definition, then it becomes an issue. Fraudulent scheme, everybody will say, sir, it's a fraudulent scheme. But what exactly, how does it, what is the mechanism? You have to explain that. So whenever you are reading anything in the newspaper, that's why newspaper reading again is very important. Whenever you are reading anything, you come across any term, you don't know that meaning of that term, Google search it. Everything is there on the internet nowadays. You don't need any book, any teacher, you don't need anyone. You have to use your own brain. College का exam ये नहीं है. Okay, next. Money laundering. Money laundering, round tripping, shell corporations, etc. You understand money laundering? What is money laundering? I think in the orientation I had explained.
It will be shown which come from the experience.
Yeah. So laundering means cleaning. Laundry के लिए जाते हैं ना अपने कपड़े. So laundering black money into white money, cleaning your black money so that it appears that it is a white money. It's money laundering. Okay. So again, there are different forms of money laundering. There are different techniques that are used for money laundering. And round tripping is one of them. Round tripping through shell corporations or through participatory notes. You have heard of these terms? Round tripping, shell corporations, participatory notes, participatory notes. ये सब पढ़ा है, सुना है कि नहीं? से आप लोग को प्रिपेयर करते हुए काफी महीने हो गए हैं ना? Few months have passed. You should have read about these terms. Okay. Nobody is going to teach you about these things. These are basic things that you should know on your own. These are basic things which appear in newspapers, magazines, etc. Okay. So until unless you take initiative from your side, nobody is going to teach you these things. Okay. So, again, I told you earlier also. You have hardly 9 months now. 9-10 months. 9 months you have. Okay. Time नहीं है. If you are not aware of these basic things, then it clearly shows that your preparation is not enough and you need to put in more hard work. Okay, read newspapers, etc. And if any term you don't understand, whether it's related to economy or international affairs, then you will have to do some internet research on that. Okay. So round tripping basically refers to the process whereby black money re-enters the economy by making a round trip. For example, I have earned some black money. Okay, what I will do? I will send it somewhere else to somewhere else. Okay, I will invest it in a shell corporation. Shell corporation means a fake company. Okay, which does not exist. In some place, Cayman Island. वहाँ पर मैंने एक shell corporation बनाया है. अपने black money को मैंने वहाँ transfer किया. Then through round tripping, that money will make a round trip and it will come back to India. Through various means, there are various means to do that. For example, participatory notes is one means. P-notes is a financial instrument through which foreign investors invest in India, and under P-notes their identity is concealed, it remains anonymous. Like the regulatory bodies, for example, SEBI, does not come to know who has invested through P notes. Their identity remains anonymous. Okay. So P note again, P note through a lot of foreign investment is attracted. At the same time, a lot of black money also comes back to the economy. Okay, money laundering. Okay, all these are examples of corporate wrongdoings, corporate malfeasance. In fact, recently HSBC Bank in US, it was accused of money laundering, of being involved in money laundering in US. What it was doing, it was laundering the black money or illegal money of the drug cartels of Mexico. Mexico US के border पर है, तो मेक्सिको के जो ड्रग लॉर्ड्स, मेक्सिको इज वेरी फेमस फॉर ड्रग प्रॉब्लम, तो वहाँ के जो ड्रग लॉर्ड्स है, they were laundering their money and they were channeling it through HSBC Bank. Okay. Okay. Next, tax avoidance and transfer pricing. Tax avoidance and transfer pricing. It is another form of corporate wrongdoing. You have heard of transfer pricing? How do corporates evade taxes?
So the
through agreements, actually, free agreements.
Charity is one way.
Subsidies.
Subsidies. Subsidiaries. Yeah, what do they do with their subsidiaries? What is the mechanism?
The government's coming to agreement that.
No, that is a different thing. That is double taxation avoidance agreement, DTA.
which is the earlier Vodafone case, I don't know.
Vodafone case was a different case. It was retrospective changes in taxes. There were accusations that Vodafone has basically transferred some of its transactions to a subsidiary company. But there were accusations that it was a shell corporation. So then retrospective changes. Vodafone case mein basically the issue was retrospective amendment in taxation laws. Taxation laws were changed retrospectively. Retrospectively means will come into effect previous effect. So that was the main issue in Vodafone case. That's why the matter went to Supreme Court. In transfer pricing, what companies do, as you were saying, that some transactions take place between the parent company and the subsidiary company. Okay. So multinational corporations, they have their branches, they have their companies, subsidiary companies in different places. Okay. So what the parent company would do, it will transact with one of its subsidiary companies so as to transfer its profits from a high tax jurisdiction to a low tax jurisdiction. I understand. For example, India mein taxes are high, suppose, and say in Singapore or Malaysia taxes are low, and a multinational corporation has its branch in India as well as in Malaysia and Singapore. So it will manipulate its books of accounts. It will show certain transactions in such a way that it will shift transactions from India to Malaysia or Singapore because their tax rates are low. Okay, so this is known as transfer pricing. Companies transferring transactions from a high tax jurisdiction to a low tax jurisdiction by transacting with subsidiary companies. Okay. So transfer pricing in contemporary times, transfer pricing is one of the issues or one of the areas, one of the techniques that are used by corporates to evade taxes. It is another example of corporate wrongdoing, corporate malfeasance. Okay. Next, crony capitalism. Crony capitalism, what does it mean? What does crony mean? What is the meaning of the word crony?
Making favors. Government will do favors.
Yeah, but that is fine. But crony का मतलब क्या है? Crony means a friend, है ना? An acquaintance, जिसको आप favor देते हैं, है ना? तो crony capitalism means basically government giving favors to certain business houses, capitalists, etc., individuals, etc. Okay. So examples of crony capitalism क्या हो जाएगा? What are the examples? 2G block allocation, 2G spectrum allocation, whole block allocation.
Maxis.
Which scam?
Maxis. Tier-1 Maxis. ASL Maxis.
ASL Maxis scam. Yes. All these are examples of crony capitalism, wherein certain favors are given to certain business houses, individuals, etc. Okay. Next. Flouting norms related to industrial safety and environmental standards. Flouting norms related to industrial safety or environmental standards. ठीक है? तो safety norms, environmental norms कंपनीज फ्लाउट करती हैं, दे डू नॉट फॉलो. एग्जांपल्स क्या हो जाएगा? यहाँ पर आपका वो एग्जांपल आएगा, भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी, है ना? इंडस्ट्रियल सेफ्टी नॉर्म्स वर वायलेटेड. Similarly, there are so many examples where environmental norms are violated. Mining, Volkswagen. Then recent, like few years back, HUL, Hindustan Unilever Limited, was accused of dumping mercury waste in Kodaikanal. Okay, again flouting environmental norms. All these are examples of companies flouting environmental and industrial safety standards. Okay, nuclear waste, yes. Companies which are in the field of nuclear energy, they are disposing nuclear waste in an unsafe manner. Medical waste, radioactive waste. And finally, the last category is non-following of product quality standards. Non-following of product quality standards. Okay, so many companies, especially those who are in the, say, FMCG, food products, etc., they do not follow product quality standards. Soft drinks, recent Maggi controversy. Johnson and Johnson, Maggi, even recently Patanjali. There were some products of Patanjali which were found to be non-compliant with FSSAI standards. What is FSSAI? Yeah. So all these are different forms of corporate wrongdoings. Accounting scandals, investing or risking investors' money by investing in high-risk activities. Okay, indulging in anti-competitive practices, Ponzi schemes, money laundering, transfer pricing, shell corporations, round tripping. ये जितने भी examples हैं, these are all examples of corporate wrongdoings. And the incidence of these wrongdoings, the incidence of these corporate misdemeanors have increased in recent times. And that's why we need a strong corporate governance framework, strong ethical framework for the private sector, so that they can be regulated in an effective manner. Okay. Now let us come to corporate governance. The concept of corporate governance. Corporate governance is the acceptance by the management of the inalienable rights of the shareholders. Of the inalienable rights of the shareholders as the true owners of the corporation. As the true owners of the corporation and of their own role as the trustees of the corporation. And of their own role as the trustees of the corporation. Investment is an act of faith. Investment is an act of faith. And it is the management's responsibility to uphold the trusteeship doctrine management's responsibility to uphold the trusteeship doctrine, protect the interest of investors, protect the interest of investors and ensure the safety of the capital. Ensure the safety of the capital. Okay. So corporate governance, what is corporate governance? Corporate governance is essentially about upholding the trusteeship doctrine. Okay. So the management of the company or the owners of the company, they are trustees on behalf of the investors. They are trustees of the corporation. Okay. And corporate governance is about upholding that trusteeship principle. It is about protecting the interest of the shareholders, ensuring the safety of their capital. Okay, because ultimately it is the investors' money which is running the company. Okay. Now the essence of corporate governance is basically moving from shareholders to stakeholders. Okay, and this shift from shareholders to stakeholders has emerged in the context of triple bottom line companies. You have heard of this term, triple bottom line companies? So, earlier companies, private sector companies, had just one bottom line, that is profit. The bottom line of a company meant the profits of the company. The company exists to maximize its profits. That is the bottom line. However, over a period of time, companies have realized that just focusing on one bottom line, that is profit, will not lead to long-term sustainability of the company. Okay. So, they have realized that a company cannot exist in isolation. If there is social instability, there is inequality, poverty, destitution, then company cannot prosper. Because ultimately people have to buy their products. If people are poor, then they will not have the capacity to, they will not have the purchasing power to buy their product. Similarly, if there is environmental deterioration, okay, then the company cannot survive in the medium to long run because ultimately they have to use the same resources. So that's why one bottom line has given way to triple bottom line concept. What are the three bottom lines of a triple bottom line company? One is profit, the other two are people and planet. Profit, people and planet, the three P's. Okay. So, this is the essence of corporate governance. After the emergence of triple bottom line companies, the focus has shifted from shareholders to stakeholders. Earlier the companies focused just on shareholders. Okay, I have to maximize, as a company, my responsibility is towards maximizing shareholders' value by providing them maximum return. And we can provide maximum return only when we earn maximum profits. Okay, so earlier that was the objective. Now, companies are now focusing not just on shareholders but on internal and external stakeholders. who are the internal stakeholders?
Investors are there, investors or shareholders, then employees, customers, suppliers,
Creditors. External stakeholders,
government or regulatory bodies, environment, and society at large.
okay. So as part of the shift from shareholders to stakeholders in the context of emergence of triple bottom line companies, companies are now focusing on a set of internal and external stakeholders, not just on shareholders. Okay. And as part of a strong corporate governance framework, a company has certain obligations, certain responsibilities towards each of these stakeholders. Okay. For example, towards shareholders or investors, what is the company's responsibility? Yeah, basically to maximize their return. The company should ensure that they should not invest shareholders' money in high-risk activities. Okay. Employees के लिए क्या है responsibility? What are the responsibilities of a company towards the employees? Provide cordial working atmosphere, employee-friendly working atmosphere, using theory-wise management style, behavioral organization management styles, working for employee welfare, providing them with social security, health insurance, etc. Okay. Then, especially for women employees, for example, implementing protection of sexual harassment at workplace act in letter and spirit. All these are basically part of ethical responsibility towards the employees of an organization. In fact, here you can get a case or a question on ethical issues in contractual employment. What of contractual employment? What are the issues in contractual employment? And so basically, people who are hired on contract, they are at a disadvantage as compared to regular employees. In terms of they can be hired or fired anytime, job insecurity. Okay, there are pay differences. Yes, salary differences are there. Apart from that, they do not have any social security. Unlike regular employees in the organized sector, no PF, no pension, no insurance, etc. Okay, there are no fixed working hours. Okay. And because of all these factors, contractual employees are vulnerable to much more exploitation as compared to regular employees. And in India, if you analyze the employment trend, the proportion of contractual employees has increased considerably after the economic reforms in the last 2 decades or so. Why has the proportion of contractual employees increased?
Minimizing the wages.
Okay.
Last picture there are institutions like above 10 members, or you need to have
Basically, rigidity in our labor laws. Okay?
You can't leverage their
Yeah. So because of our rigid labor laws, you have heard about labor laws? Labor laws, how many labor laws we have? We have around 44 central labor laws. Again, labor is a concurrent list subject. Concurrent list means both the central government as well as the state governments have concurrent jurisdiction. Okay? So we have around 44 central laws and more than 100 state laws. Around 150 different laws are there related to different aspects of labor. Okay? And the labor laws are very rigid. That's why factories, companies, industrial enterprises, they do not want to hire regular workers. Because if they recruit regular workers, then they will have to follow all those labor laws. So to circumvent those labor laws, to avoid those labor laws, they hire contractual workers. Okay. In fact, in recent times, a number of labor-related reforms have taken place in different states. The government has introduced a number of policies, new policies, programs, qualified assistance schemes, etc. Okay. Yeah, there is a draft labor code that is under consideration. Okay. States such as Rajasthan and MP, they have introduced a number of reforms. Again, labor reforms is a very important part of your paper 3, economy. Labor reforms is a very important. In fact, labor reforms is considered to be one of the essential components for the success of Make in India. Until unless labor reforms take place, manufacturing sector cannot prosper. So in ethics of contractual employment, ethical issues in contractual employment, you will have to write those labor reforms. What are the labor reforms that are needed to promote regular employment instead of contractual employment? Clear? Okay, then employees के बाद customers. What is the responsibility towards customers? Providing quality products, proper labeling norms follow करना. For example, in food products, to give accurate information regarding all the ingredients, etc. Ensuring the safety of the products and recalling the product if the product is not safe. For example, recently Samsung had recalled a range of its handsets, mobile handsets, because they were found to be unsafe. Blast हो जाएगा था उसका बैटरी. Similarly, not making false or misleading claims in advertisements. Customer care, advance interest. Proper pricing is there, yes. Yeah. That's what I said. Not making false or misleading claims in advertisements. For example, fairness claims. Okay. Suppliers के लिए क्या responsibility है? What is the responsibility towards suppliers?
Transparency.
Creditors के ऊपर suppliers.
Transparency.
Accountability in what? Payment plus creating a level playing field at the time of selecting the supplier, not giving undue favors to a particular supplier, selecting suppliers through open competition, through tendering, and then regular payments to the supplier. Okay. Creditors के लिए क्या है? Paying their money. Creditor basically repayment, fulfilling your debt service obligations. Nowadays, people are not doing this, which has led to NPA crisis. Okay. So these are the responsibility as part of a strong corporate governance framework, as part of ethics in private sector. These are the ethical responsibilities of a company towards the internal stakeholders. Then external stakeholders towards the government and regulatory body. क्या responsibility है? Yes, paying taxes, following the rule of law, following the regulatory framework. Okay. For the environment, Adopting the path of sustainable development, conserving environment, waste management, investing in R&D to develop renewable energy, etc. And society at large, corporate social responsibility, investing in health, education, sanitation, etc. for larger social welfare. Okay. So this is the essence of corporate governance. A set of responsibility towards different stakeholders, internal as well as external. Okay. Now, advantages or need of corporate governance. Why do we need a corporate governance framework? Why do we need a strong corporate governance framework? What is the importance? What are the advantages? Now, the importance or advantage of any concept can be analyzed at two levels, at an intrinsic level and at an instrumental level. You remember when we had discussed the importance of ethics, importance of values, we discussed at two levels. At an individual institutional, individual level में intrinsic importance, instrumental importance. So, importance or need for a strong corporate governance framework or a strong ethical framework for private sector can be analyzed at two levels. First is intrinsic importance. Second is instrumental importance. Instrumental importance can again be subcategorized into categories. Advantages for the company, advantages for the economy. Okay. So, intrinsic importance का क्या मतलब होता है? What does it mean?
Those things are intrinsically.
They are intrinsically important. They are end in themselves. For us, like following ethics on part of private sector is an end in itself. Okay. For example, you can quote various normative ethical theories here. For example, you can quote contractarianism. It's part of the social contract between the private sector and the state. The private sector should follow a set of ethical principles and standards. You can quote categorical imperative. It's part of the categorical imperative of the private sector. Okay. Similarly, you can quote rule utilitarianism. Okay, what will happen if everybody has a rule, every private sector entity has a rule, starts to flout ethical norms and principles. Okay, so intrinsic importance को highlight करने के लिए you can quote different normative ethical theories that private sector needs to follow a strong corporate governance framework, a strong ethical framework because it is an end in itself. Okay, it is a virtue in itself. Okay. Instrumental importance means it is an instrument, a strong corporate governance framework or a strong ethical framework. It is an instrument, it is a means to achieve something else. Okay, it is an instrument because it is advantageous for the company and it is advantageous for the economy. Okay, how is it advantageous for the company? First, it helps in attracting investors, customers, and retaining employees. It helps in attracting customers and investors and in retaining employees. Okay. So,
is a brand.
yeah. So a strong corporate governance framework अगर किसी कंपनी का है, ठीक है, investors, especially foreign investors, are attracted towards them. It helps in attracting customers, ठीक है, and it helps in retaining employees. है ना, कि company works for employees' welfare, ठीक है, then good quality employees will be able to be retained. Okay. So again, as I said, कि corporate governance helps in brand building. Okay. Now, earlier, what was the thought process? Earlier, what did company think? They thought that investing in a strong corporate governance framework is a wastage of money. If you are working for employees' welfare, customer welfare, etc., then you are wasting your money. It will lead to reduction in profits. Okay, but over a period of time, again, with the emergence of triple bottom line companies, they have realized that in the short run, it might lead to increased expenditure, but in the medium to long run, it will lead to sustainable profits. Okay. In fact, if you see the balance sheet of a company, balance sheet जो होता है, in the balance sheet here we have asset and liability, and on the asset side, one of the intangible assets is goodwill. Okay. Goodwill is a proxy for your moral reputation, है ना? और goodwill कब monetize होता है?
These things. Attract investors.
Yeah, goodwill helps in attracting investors, but when it is monetized when the company is sold or in mergers and acquisitions, है ना? तब इस goodwill को quantify किया जाता है. Okay, for example, when a company is being sold, okay, its market price is say $1 million. फिर goodwill का उसमें monetary value लगाया जाता है कि कंपनी का जो brand value है, monetary value है, how उसका क्या monetary मतलब कि उसको कैसे quantify किया जाए? How to quantify that? तो say a company's goodwill is worth $20 million. So $100 million, $20 million would be added. I understand. So this is how goodwill is capitalized. Goodwill is monetized in times of sale and mergers and acquisition. Okay. So that's why it is generally said that moral reputation never goes waste. It eventually gets capitalized. So a company with a strong corporate governance framework is able to benefit more in the medium to long run. Okay. In fact, you can give examples. You can give examples of Tata's, Infosys. These are examples of companies with a strong brand value, strong goodwill component, which have benefited because of the strong corporate governance framework that these companies have, strong ethical framework that these companies follow. Second is advantages for the economy. Now this is advantages for the company. And it helps in attracting investors, customers, retaining employees, etc. Even from the vantage point of economy, okay, research suggests that a strong corporate governance framework helps in boosting GDP by 1.5 to 2%. Okay. How it helps in boosting GDP by 1.5 to 2%? Attracting foreign investment. Also, companies with a strong corporate governance framework, they are given a premium for their stock prices in terms of their stock market evaluation. And the stock markets are intricately linked to the real economy. It's like cascading impact. If the stock markets do well, then all the macroeconomic indicators do well. Okay, so companies are given a premium for their stock prices. Okay. So again, when you are writing, you have to quote facts. You have to say, okay, research suggests that a strong if the economy, most of the private sector companies have a strong corporate governance framework, then it can boost the GDP by 1.5 to 2%. इस तरीके के फैक्ट्स आपको लिखने होंगे फाइनेंसेस में. Clear? So these are basically, this is how you can analyze the importance or advantages of corporate governance framework. Intrinsic, instrumental can further be divided into advantages for the company, advantages for the economy. Okay, now let us come to corporate governance framework in India. What is the corporate governance framework in India? See, internationally, the interest in corporate governance started in the early 1990s. After the new economic reforms, after the economic reforms took place in different parts of the world, and the private sector started playing an important role in the development and governance process, the interest in corporate governance started. So internationally, a number of committees and commissions were set up, which gave various recommendations how to develop a strong corporate governance framework. Okay. So for example, in 1992, Category Committee was set up. Okay, it's a very famous committee, very popular committee. Okay. Category Committee. Then Ample Committee was set up in 1998. HAMPEL, Ample Committee. Okay. In 2002, OECD came out with its principles of corporate governance. You know OECD? What is OECD?
Organization for Economic Cooperation.
Yeah. So OECD came out with its own principles of corporate governance in 2002. In India, again, a number of committees and commissions have been set up. Okay. So Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee was set up in 2000. Okay. Then Naresh Chandra Committee was set up. Narayan Murthy Committee was set up. And very recently, Adi Godrej Committee was set up. Okay. So we have had so many committees and commissions internationally as well as domestically. Okay. Now what I will do is that I have categorized the recommendations of all these committees into different categories. Now it is not possible because it is not possible to go through the recommendations of each and every committee. So I have made a list of common recommendations that these committees have given, both international as well as national. I have categorized them into different headings and subheadings. And any question on corporate governance, you can basically quote those principles only, because the principles are common across all committees. They have given very similar recommendations. Okay. So any question on corporate governance, the answer would be those principles only. Okay. So overarching principles of corporate governance. Now we are going to discuss overarching principles of corporate governance. First, shareholders or stakeholders. The first set of principles relate to shareholders or stakeholders. Just ask them when the sociology class is going to start. Is it going to start at 2 or 2:15 or 2:30? We'll complete this corporate governance part tomorrow. Then tomorrow we will also do ethics in international relations, ethics in IT. Okay, from day after we will start governance part.
Yes.
Test either day after or on Sunday, either on Saturday or Sunday. I'll tell you the time. Come here, you give the test, then we'll have a discussion afterwards.
Sunday will be
Sunday will be, I'll have to check the availability here because Saturday, Sunday here test goes on. So you want to give test on Sunday? Acha. So Saturday also we'll have a class. Saturday we'll have a class. ठीक है, I'll ask on Sunday which are the time slots available.